It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, ends up, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Full Court Press. Jason Walker with you here. Eric Frandsen is in the room. We're quickly setting something up, so he's distracted for the moment. But you will have us both here on the show. I know whenever I start the show, some of your alarm bells probably start ringing that it's just going to be me on the show. But it is me and Eric. We'll be bringing a lot to you today. There's a lot going on. A lot kind of happened in the last couple of hours. Some new news coming down the line and just some other leftover stuff from the last couple of days, but did you just turn my mic off?
No.
Or did my
I'm
mic
adjusting
die?
the headphones.
Oh, is that what it was?
The main
you turned down.
feed
Okay,
was like, wow, way out there.
I turned my headphones down, so whenever I can't hear myself in my headphones, I start worrying. Sometimes we had an adventure earlier or late last week when you weren't here. I started off the show talking to the microphone and it wasn't on yet.
Oh, that's always fun.
It was a little embarrassing. Didn't last too long though. But anyway.
No, we're here. Both mics are on. We can hear each other. That's good. Hopefully you can hear us as well. And a special guest on the show. Actually, we've got a couple of guests that you're going to hear on the show today by the time we're all said and done. But first and foremost, Interim Director of Athletics, Jerry Bovee, joining us here on the program this afternoon. And busy night, busy weekend, and it's been a very busy week and a half for Jerry as well. Jerry, thanks for your time today.
Pleasure. It's good to be with you, Eric and Jason. And yes, you're right. It's always busy. There's never a dull moment in athletics, so that's just what we've come to expect, and it's part of our life.
So, I mean, John Hartwell moves on in the fall, and you're running the show and acting as the director of athletics. And, I mean, there's been no shortage of big decisions to be made while you're in the interim chair, but perhaps none bigger than what just happened with finding a new basketball coach. What was that process like for you, and just what experiences have you had before in finding a new head coach at a pretty premier sport that's under your purview?
Yeah, I mean, this was a first at the FBS level for sure, being directly over that process. At Weber State, I had some wild rides there. I hired 4 football coaches in the span of about 18 months after Coach McBride stepped down, and we went through the John L. Smith experience and all that. But this is my first head men's basketball coach. But the process really is nearly similar. I mean, it's very similar to what I've experienced. Over my time, I've probably hired 15 coaches. So it wasn't something I looked at. I mean, certainly the pressure's on in every hire if you're taking your job serious. But, this was a little different in an interim role. I have been in an interim role at Weber when I first started there, so certainly understand that process. It wasn't quite this long, but honestly, if you just take each day and get what you need to get done and keep moving forward, it all starts to cluster together. But this was a great experience. The first thing, I think, for me was the interest in the job. It was, at the time our job came online, there were only a few other jobs at the FBS level that would have been considered better jobs. I mean, by some. I think this is a great job. But, you had a couple of Power 5 jobs out there, and they all kind of got solved. And so at some point there in our process, we were the best job going, and I think that also raised the level of interest from prospective coaches.
You kind of take us behind the door a little bit as far as finding a new head coach, because you mentioned people show interest, but when you walk out of the room with Ryan Odom and he says he's leaving, like, do you reach out to other coaches, or is it mostly exclusively you picking through applications and looking for the best hires?
Yeah, it's a little different than hiring a window worker at a fast food restaurant for sure. Your time initially is spent trying to keep your coach. And as Ryan and I were talking over that last week, he had a lot of irons in the fire and people chasing after him. And so, the focus was there. Once it was determined that he was moving and he kind of announced it and it was final, then you go to the next step. And in our case, felt like it was important not to use a search firm. I didn't feel like it was needed. There was enough interest that was going to be out there. So I went to my contacts. I mean, I first put my own list together of coaches that I'd been watching and you just do. The network is smaller than you'd think in our business. There's only 130 Division I FBS schools, and so invariably you get your way around and kind of meet a lot of people over time. And I had a list together pretty quick of coaches I was interested in. And then you start working with agents that are repping their prospective coaches. I mean, this whole notion of, hey, I'm going to go get the guy I want, it's really impossible to do that if they're not interested, obviously. So you got to find a nice balance between those that you're interested in and those that are interested in you, and you hope that your list meshes with those that are interested in you so you can get off and run with it. We probably had 20 coaches around the country that either we were interested in talking to or had expressed interest through third parties, and so that began to develop a list that you start to work through in your interview process. Sorry, I didn't quite finish that sentence, but that's kind of the process we started with, or I started with.
So what was it about Coach Sprinkle that you really felt like stood out and ultimately pushed him to the top of the list ahead of everybody else?
Well, the nice thing that we had going on was this happened right near the Final Four. So the NABC holds meetings at the Final Four for all coaches. So you've got assistants and head coaches I believe they stayed at the Hilton in downtown Houston, which I did not want to stay at the Hilton and have everybody, trying to get to me. You lose time quickly by doing that. So I stayed off-site and had coaches come to me. And over the course of those 3 days, I probably met with 12 coaches, 3 or 4 were assistants, a few at the Power 5 level, and then, the rest that were just head coaches in the FBS Group of 5 or FCS type of institution, and started the process just interviewing an hour and a half to 2 hours with each one and getting into everything from what kind of offense they run, defense they run, to personnel, to coaching stuff. I mean, you just get into it, start having in-depth conversations. Early on in my meeting with Danny and then subsequent meetings, it just worked. It was his alignment of his philosophy of basketball aligned with what we were looking for at Utah State, the kind of student athlete that he wanted to bring in and had ties to, his recruiting base and contacts. It all started to align. And then when he started to talk a lot more about what Utah State was, what his perceptions of Utah State were, I was amazed at how much he knew. I mean, I knew that he had played here when he played at Montana State, that he had coached here in the Big West, but just to get a feel for his feelings about our culture and what was important to our fan base, it just started to mesh. And we had the opportunity to meet 3 different times in that 3-day period. I'm a big believer in getting coaches to campus to see what we have, and there's a process for me in interviewing coaches and really all staff, but in particular coaches, and the things just lined up that he emerged very clearly in my mind as the top choice.
So obviously, Danny's been here for, I believe it's pretty much exactly a week now, because I think we had the press conference a week ago. I know you're obviously busy with the stuff you're doing, but what have you had a chance to observe about, Coach Sprinkle as he's worked for about a week, trying to get this program up and running again?
Yeah, I mean, we made the announcement last Friday, and then we had the press conference on Monday. So and then he had to get back home, get a few things together, and come back. He and his assistants drove down Wednesday. So, he's been here in the offices for a couple days, and it's been good. There's a lot to do. He's been meeting with players. He's been talking to those that are in the portal, both from Utah State looking at other options and those in the portal that might be interested in Utah State. So it's been, we've talked a lot about where we're going and what's coming and going, and there's a lot to do right now. He's got to do a lot of rebuilding with the seniors that we lost and a few that are likely going in the portal. There's a lot to do, but my initial thoughts are great. I mean, he's doing the things that we need him to do to get our program ready to go, and we expect to be competitive.
We're talking to Interim Director of Athletics, Jerry Bovee, and besides that, I mean, I know you've got a busy week this week with the Hall of Fame induction ceremony taking place tomorrow, but also a really neat event that's going to be taking place tonight, kind of a celebration of Title IX and just all the great women that have come through Utah State athletics, either as players or coaches. I guess just quickly, briefly walk us through everything that's going on tonight and tomorrow.
Yeah, tonight's going to be a unique event down at the Riverwoods where we'll have a meal, and we're just there'll be a few panels, a few different speeches. It's an opportunity to celebrate with our Hall of Fame inductees this weekend, really the benefits of women in sport. It's been 50 years since Title IX was enacted, and really it's been 50 years since Utah State got into the game of women's athletics full tilt. And so to be able to talk about those stories, those opportunities, it was very difficult early for these women. They're all pioneers. To be able to kind of crack through what was a system that was set up for men. And, they've been able to bust that wall down. And honestly, I have a daughter. I'm grateful for the opportunities that women have to participate in sports, because the statistics of their participation the benefits far outweigh anything else. You can go down the line of all the studies that have been done for what sport does for women, and they're different outcomes than men in a lot of cases. Women that play sports are less apt to be abused in any form or fashion. They're more apt to be in leadership roles in their employment and in management, and the list goes on and on. So we're going to celebrate that tonight, and we're going to raise some money that will benefit women in sport at Utah State. We're going to talk about it. We're going to learn about the past, and we're going to make plans to be better in the future. And so it'll be an exciting night tonight. And then tomorrow night with an all-women's induction class into our Utah State Athletics Hall of Fame will be an exceptional event up on campus as well.
So I know there's 7 inductees into this class, and one that I was kind of particularly interested in because I just kind of started looking into the past and learning about some of these women. One in particular, Marilyn Weiss, who's kind of that, I don't know if she was the first director of athletics, director of women's athletics. And it seemed like she really was one of those pioneers in that she basically started a lot of the programs, and 2 of those that won national titles. I don't know if you've had a chance to, learn yourself about, her accomplishments and get to know her a little bit. Just, I guess, tell us anything you've learned about her in these last few weeks.
I have, Jason. In fact, I had the opportunity because we had just gone through the process with our Hall of Fame committee of choosing the class when the transition happened with John leaving. And so I had the opportunity and fun to call all of these ladies to give them the news about the Hall of Fame. And Marilyn and I had a chance to talk then. Today I visited with her as she was doing some video shoots and different things that we have planned for tomorrow night, and it was a great opportunity to hear some of her stories and experiences. She talked a lot about just trying to get the program started from scratch and finding athletes and finding coaches, hiring a 23-year-old coach to coach an athlete that was 27, and that dynamic. The things that she had to do, she is a pioneer, and this is exciting for us after all these years to be able to honor her for her accomplishments. And, it took a lot of stubbornness and a will to do this at that time, because there were a lot that didn't believe in it. There's still a lot of people that don't believe in it, frankly. And she broke down a lot of walls, had the courage and strength to just keep fighting. And she's very deserving of our Hall of Fame, and you'll get to hear some more stories over the weekend about Marilyn and what she did in her role administratively, as well as coaching.
Last question for me, because I know you're short on time. You got a big event coming up tonight, but the Utah State football team is going to be holding their spring blue-white scrimmage coming up next Saturday. Not tomorrow, but next Saturday. And for folks who haven't been in the stadium for a little while, there's some changes going on there. There's some construction going on in that south end zone. What's the process been like? Can you provide any update on what's been going on down there?
Yeah, we're there. The group is working hard from Raymond Construction to get that done for the season. That the restroom that was over in that southeast corner has been torn down. We're widening the egress points that get you toward the student section. That's a bottleneck that's been a challenge for us as far as fan safety and just the overall game day experience. So that's being widened. New bathrooms will go in there, and then there will be a platform on top of those bathrooms where we can set up events during the game, larger events for folks to, we'll still work out whether we're going to rent that out or how that'll go, but we'll have conference space over there or meeting space where we could do small group events in that corner of the stadiums. It's really a work to improve the fan experience, to improve the restrooms. You got to have that at a game, and they need to be accessible and easy to get into. So I think little by little, as we continue to make changes, it's all geared toward helping our fans have a better experience and easier to get in and out of games.
So just one final question for me as well. I know this is a topic that can be kind of tricky to answer as far as what you can actually say. But no, NIL has been a huge topic in college sports, especially right now. It's the off season and recruiting and all that. But I know Utah State has their new collective, and just wondering how all that kind of works with the university, and just kind of your thoughts on how it's impacted, athletics, especially at Utah State.
Yeah, it's certainly impacted our sport nationwide. It's changed the recruiting process for a lot of teams. It's caused a lot of institutions to self-reflect on what their mission is and who they want to be. And, there's really two prongs to this. There's the NIL prong, which I think no one would refute, the opportunity for student athletes to benefit on their name, image, and likeness, to be spokesmen and women for different businesses, or to simply sell their opportunity to an event, whether it's autograph sessions or video sessions that almost like a celebrity event. That to me should have always been the opportunity for our student athletes. And so in some respects we missed and have for years on that. Then you've got the other side where groups can come in, raise money, and actually give that money to student athletes in return, either for them to promote the collective or connect with other businesses that the collective is partnered with to receive resources. And those are the things nationwide that, some have an angst with, or they question what it's done to our sport. I do anticipate we'll have some national or federal legislation that should be coming. Charlie Baker, our new president of the NCAA, is coming out of politics to do this job, and will spend an enormous amount of his time in Washington, D.C., and we're hopeful that we can get some semblance to this madness so that we can get kind of back into what the market should be bearing rather than false money that's not market-based. So there are some challenges right now. We're trying to get in the game and do what's best for our student athletes without getting outside of what we believe this ought to all be about in intercollegiate athletics. But it's difficult because you have teams in your own league that might have different philosophies that are given more money. I would say that it doesn't necessarily always lead to success. Sometimes it creates more dysfunction in the locker room. So I think just because we see other teams doing things, we should hold back a little bit of judgment to think that we're behind when those teams that might be paying the most aren't necessarily performing at least out of the gates in this process. We feel pretty good about where we're at. We're going to continue to push it. As far as the collective goes, we do have interaction there and we can promote it, but we can't be directly involved with it. So everyone in our department's learning what their role is to continue to support it and help it grow to the betterment of our program, while still raising money for all the other needs that we have.
Well, Coach. Sorry, that's a standard.
Coach,
I almost said that too.
Coaches, right?
Jerry Bovee, Interim Director of Athletics. I know you're a busy guy. You got a really special event tonight and certainly a really neat event tomorrow as well. Best of luck with everything going on there, and thanks for the updates, and hopefully we can
my pleasure.
Catch up with you again
Thanks
soon.
for having me on.
All right, thanks, Jerry. Jerry Bovee, Interim Director of Athletics at USU. The celebration of women in sport with Utah State Athletics, that's taking place tonight at the Riverwoods Conference Center. And then the 20th Hall of Fame class is being inducted tomorrow, and that's going to be at the Russell Wanless Performance Hall Saturday night at 7 o'clock. A quick timeout here in the Full Court Press. When we come back, a lot more to discuss. Stick around. 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Spend less time at the post office. With Formax and Mint mailing systems from Les Olson IT, you can quickly, accurately, and easily process your outgoing mail and even save on postage. Fold your documents, stuff and seal your envelopes, print addresses, weigh and measure to apply proper postage, all with the click of a button. With multiple model options available, you're sure to find a Formax solution and Mint mailing device that perfectly fits your business needs.
Les Olson IT.
Styles and color combinations, rather than buying mass, cheap-produced frames overseas. Your glasses will feel like they were made for you. Crystal Vision. Online at crystalvision.com.
Looking for a stable career with great pay, benefits, and positive work environment? This is Scotty with Homestead Cabinets in Hiram. We produce high-quality, state-of-the-art custom cabinetry and are looking for employees who want to become skilled craftsmen. Work Monday through Friday with weekends off. Wages start at $16 per hour with opportunities for growth as you gain experience. Benefits include daily free breakfast, monthly profit sharing, as well as great health insurance. Homestead is a company that values its employees. They emphasize growth of the individual as well as the company. Go to homesteadcabinet.net and apply today.
Talking the sports you care about. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker. Really appreciate Jerry Bovee spending some time with us. Ahead of a busy night tonight and a busy day tomorrow. But interesting just to hear his experience of the process that he went through to hire Coach Danny Sprinkle and what that process was like. Interesting note, you're going to get a chance to hear from Coach Danny Sprinkle here soon.
Yeah, got a new episode of the Light the A podcast coming out. We recorded the interview this morning. Had a chance to catch up with him in a very busy couple of days for him. We had one kind of tentatively scheduled for yesterday. Turned out he was a little too busy, so we moved. And I'm not complaining. It's just like he's busy,
right?
And it really shows we're kind of seeing firsthand just how busy he is to work through this program because obviously we're like second, third, 18th priority for him, and so we're seeing every time one of these new things comes up, he's trying to recruit somebody. There was a dead period this last week, and it ended today. So all morning, he's on the phone with recruits and trying to set up visits and things like that. And he takes 10 minutes out of his very busy day to talk to us.
Yeah.
So we got to see that firsthand. So we did get the recording in today. I've scheduled it for I think like 7:02 is when it'll officially hit the podcast feed. About 10 minutes of us talking with him. Kind of a lot about that process of building a roster. Just the challenges he's facing, what expectations or if there can be expectations at this point, different things like that as he's setting up for year one at Utah State.
Yeah. That's you can hear the full audio of that interview on the Light the A podcast. And we'll isolate the interview that we just did with Jerry Bovee as well on our 106.9 The Fan Full Court Press podcast feed. But interesting things from Jerry Bovee, too. I mean, here's a guy who has been on staff for a couple of years. It's not like he just arrived, but he's got a lot of experience of being in the big chair as a director of athletics and kind of got thrust into it late last fall and has been making his way through and looks like he's doing a really fine job at doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting because he said he didn't want to use a search firm, which didn't John Hartwell pretty much always use search firms?
He did early on, and then the last what for Odom he did not, but for Blake, for Craig, he did. I think he even used a search firm for the women's basketball, but for Ryan Odom he did not. I think because of the timing of it, where it just been 3 years since Craig Smith was done, and from what I remember him saying, he felt like there were enough quality applicants who they became aware of the last time, and he had seen the process enough that he didn't feel like he needed a search firm this go-around. And turns out he didn't. I mean, he found a good coach.
Yeah, he did. And, I mean, it seems Jerry Bovee had enough connections that I guess he didn't feel like he needed a search firm, because I guess you go to a search firm either because you're not confident enough in your own ability to just, or maybe you don't have enough time. There could be a number of legitimate factors that you need a search firm, but if you have enough connections to, maybe I'm reading too much into his use or not use of search firms, but interesting that he was able to, I think, get a pretty dang good hire without having to, cast this enormous net and try and find every single prospect. He was able to pretty quickly isolate probably several really good candidates.
Or spend additional university resources.
Yeah, those search firms cost money.
Yeah, they do. So, yeah, interesting stuff there. Interesting to get the updates on the developments going on in the south end zone. So when you show up next Saturday for the blue and white scrimmage, keep an eye on that. I mean, there may be some areas that may make it difficult to navigate a little bit. Sounds like they're trying to make that a little bit easier for folks coming next Saturday, but just be aware. But that'll be interesting to see how that affects traffic flow and just the general fan experience. And I know there's a lot of stadiums that is a really, really big focus for them, because it's so easy for people to enjoy a game in the comfort of their own couch on a big screen television where you don't have to wait in line for a bathroom because it's 10 feet away, and get a beverage when you want. But that's nice and all, but it does not replicate the fan experience. Being there with a bunch of your friends or other people who are like-minded cheering for the same team, that is a special, fun experience. But you can't abuse that. And I think that's something that the university is trying to address in improving the fan experience. And that's not just here. A lot of universities are doing it, but those restroom facilities on that southeast corner, they've been bad for a long time.
Yeah, and I think as far as the actual just act of sitting there and being part of the crowd and cheering, Utah State's had a pretty good handle on that, just with the culture they have of the Utah State, fan and also student experience. Just about every other part of the stadium experience, concessions, tickets, restrooms, has definitely been below average. For ordinary fans, as someone who went to a lot of games as a student and, also as a fan, before I came here as a student, it wasn't the greatest experience compared to some of the other places I've been to, where I've been to BYU Stadium, been to Utah Stadium, been to some of these other professional stadiums. I know it's hard to compare Utah State to a professional stadium, but generally, it doesn't require tons of money to just have an easy experience, getting to the bathroom, getting concessions, getting back to your seat. Those are all experiences that if you improve them, then yeah, people are more likely to, come to games, and they'll be more likely to go get concessions and things like that.
Yeah,
which will make the university money, or at least it'll make somebody money.
It should make the university some money.
I would hope so. I don't know how the whole process works of concessions and paying the university and all that, but everybody ends up benefiting. Maybe more fans come, the concessions make more money, university makes more money, everyone's happier. Little knock-on effects there.
Yeah, so interesting stuff there from Jerry Bovee, acting as the AD. I mean, he has to. And it was interesting just he talked about his first priority was try to keep Ryan Odom, but once that became clear, shifted gears quickly to try to find the next person to be the coach. And you'll get a chance to hear more from Danny Sprinkle a little bit later on here on the program, and hear his thoughts about putting a roster together. 8 roster spots, 8 scholarships are available at Utah State. And he gave us some insight, too, on whether the portal players for Utah State, if there's a chance for them coming back or not. I know we discussed some things that became available just the other day, some comments from Stephen Ashworth, and Danny Sprinkle has some comments on that, what he believes might happen with the Utah State players who have put their names in the portal.
Yeah, not comments on Ashworth specifically or what Ashworth said, but just his feelings on maybe which players might come back, which won't, if any of them will. So we'll get to that.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's actually take another quick time out here in the Full Court Press. What were your thoughts? Anything that stood out to you in the interview with Jerry Bovee with the future of Utah State athletics and Danny Sprinkle hire? Some of the talks, descriptions about how that went down. 435-339-0321. Other news to get to, some former Aggies, speaking of portal players, some former players have found their new home. They've announced where they're going to land. And we need to talk about another former Aggie who got some nice accolades. And so we'll talk about all that coming up on the Full Court Press.
Elements has delicious lunch specials, 2 for $30, or the new soup, salad, and bread special for just $10. It's tasty and quick. Elements lunch menu is full of scrumptious items prepared with a personal touch. Wood-fired pizzas are an excellent choice that include barbecue chicken and the bee's knees. The fresh battered halibut fish and chips with seasoned fries is always a hit. And don't forget the fan favorite Munster burger. Casual or professional. Open Monday through Thursday, 11:30 to 8 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11:30 to 9 p.m. Visit theelementsrestaurant.com for reservations today.
Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and It's Earth Day this week, and DD Auto and Salvage is going to continue to do their very best to give the highest possible prices. If you have an automobile or scrap metal, let DD Auto and Salvage help clean it up. Call DD Auto and Salvage at 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
Happy Earth Day, Cache Valley.
See store for details.
This is Nate Lamson with Valley Office Systems, your home team when local matters. Valley Office Systems is your local provider for all things office, copiers, printers, furniture, and document management. Proudly serving Cache Valley since 2007. Visit valleyofficesystems.com.
It doesn't matter who you root for. The Full Court Press has all the high school sports covered. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Again, big thanks to Jerry Bovee, interim director of athletics for Utah State.
I'm sure he's really hoping that he gets the job simply so that everyone will stop saying interim athletic director.
I know.
That would drive me up the friggin' wall.
That's a long time to be an interim.
Yeah.
Anything.
Like every time it's this like, oh, you're not actually the athletic director. You're only the interim. Like, because everyone thinks of him as just the athletic director. But every time you say it, you have to say interim. And it's just like, just give the man the job already. He's doing just fine. Just give him the job already.
He's raising money. He's making good coaching hires. I think what's going on with this Hall of Fame stuff is awesome. And not all of this happened just because of him, but there are some significant things that have happened on his watch. J.C. Carroll getting his jersey retired. He's a part of that. Well, got his jersey displayed. Maybe that's a better way to put that.
He was the reason that J.C. Carroll wouldn't have had a great career. He was in his corner the whole time. All right, J.C., you're going to go out there. You're going to hit 10 threes tonight. 10 threes.
Well, you know what we mean. We know what we mean.
He was also there back in the day coaching Stu Morrill. All right, coach. That's what you're going to do. You're going to go out there and you're going to recruit Ty Wesley.
It's all because of him. No.
Jerry Bovee is the reason behind all of Utah State athletics.
Yeah, that's right.
You'll find him in a school photo in like 1888. It's like, is that Jerry Bovee? He's been there the whole time.
He's the USU athletics whisperer.
He's
around forever.
It's a timeless man.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's start that rumor.
It's like those old photos of Nicolas Cage. It's like from Civil War.
Yeah, just like
he's always been around.
Just find some look-alike.
So let's talk, since we're talking about the Aggies, we've known some former Aggies are in the portal, switching to football. A.J. Vongphachanh kind of surprised everybody with a later announcement that he was going to be transferring. A lot of players on that defensive front decided to leave Utah State. Then A.J. Vongphachanh a little bit later put his name in the portal, and today announced where he's going to be going, and looks like he's heading south. Not too far south, though. He's going to Provo.
Yeah. That's just... And it feels annoying to a lot of Aggie fans. I thought he was probably going to end up in Washington. I think, I don't know if...
He was Washington State.
He was Washington State. He would end up in the state of Washington at Washington State.
Right.
So I think that was one of his suitors. You know, because he's from there. But he ends up going to BYU. I'm sure they offered him plenty of NIL money. But he's going to go in there. BYU's in need of some good players, and A.J. Vongphachanh is a good player. I hesitate to say or agree with, I know, one BYU writer who he wrote his little article, and he also tweeted out saying that he was going to be a candidate for all Big 12. And I was like, I watched him for 3 years, and he's good, but he's not that good.
He's not all Big 12 good.
He wasn't even all Mountain West. He got all Mountain West honorable mention in 2020. You know, the year where we played 6 games. And then he played, 14, 13 games the last couple of seasons. Didn't make, and again, he was good. Had 101 tackles last year, 10.5 tackles for loss, handful of sacks, pass breakups, whatnot. He's good. Should probably start for BYU. All Big 12 is a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, he's a great player, and he was an impact player for USU. Love to have him back. He'll be a good player at BYU.
Yeah, he was going to be Utah State's most experienced player.
Yeah, it's true.
It's going to be really valuable in terms of his experience, and it'll be valuable to BYU because of that.
I just think there's a disillusion going on down there about where they exist in the universe of sports, and they're going to have a rude awakening when they transition to the Big 12.
Yeah, Utah had that same thing. They were all high and mighty about going to the Pac-12, and then all of a sudden they got their teeth kicked in. BYU's probably going to get it a little harder because Utah was a little bit more on the up and up when they went into the Pac-12. They're still, having some pretty decent years, at least if I remember right. Sometimes I say these things and it turns out I'm wrong. But I seem to remember Utah being on a little bit more of an up and up than BYU was, where they've kind of stagnated a little bit as far as where they are as a program.
Utah was consistently a top 25 team and a top 10 team before their transition to the Pac-12.
I'm double-checking my facts here.
And it still took them a bit to get caught up to speed.
Yeah, so looking at the last few years of them in the Mountain West, they joined the Pac-12 in 2011. In 2010, they were ranked as high as 6th in the AP poll. They were 10-3 that year. They were 10-3 the year before that. Ended the season at 18th in the AP poll, so that's 2009. 2008, that was the year they went undefeated, won the Sugar Bowl, finished number 2 in the AP poll. Behind, who was it Florida that year? I'm trying to remember who was the champion that year. Florida might have been earlier. That might have been like 2006. But whoever won the championship that year, Utah slid in right behind at number 2.
Yeah, so Utah had several years in a row where they were a top 25 team at the end of the year, and we should clarify that because BYU has had times earlier in the year where they'll flirt with the top 25, but they haven't been ending the season in the top 25.
Yeah, they do have a couple of recent, the 2020 year, they did pretty well. They did all right in 2021. They did end up finishing in the AP in 2021, but looking at the years before that, they've been stagnant. And then this year was basically what you just said, where they flirted with the top 25. They actually started in the top 25, rose all the way to 12th, and then kind of collapsed in the season end up falling out of the top 25. So their program feels like it's on a downward trend, whereas Utah was top 25 consistently, playing pretty well. And, I think BYU is going to struggle. And, Utah struggled as well. So, in Utah State, when they join the Mountain West, whenever you jump into a conference, above where you're at, odds are you're going to struggle. It's a rare team that's able to just jump in and start, just guns a-blazing.
Right.
Saying, all right, I'm going to win the championship this year.
Let's go.
Get ready, everybody. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, it took TCU a while once they moved to the Big 12.
Yeah, they struggled quite a bit, but they've gotten out of it.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's sad to see AJ Vongphachanh go. But I think there's a few that are overstating what his impact will be for BYU.
Yeah.
But look, I'm not rooting against him. I hope he does well. It's too bad that he left here. And the other thing that's interesting is that there's a second transfer portal window that opens. Is it tomorrow or early next week? And will be open for 14 days for football players. And this is that time where if you went and you kind of hung on through recruiting in the early signing period, and then what happened in February, kind of still hung on, and you're into spring practices, but now it's starting to become evident that it's just not going to work for you. This is the time where those other players can start to put their names in the portal again.
Yeah, and this is something that Blake Anderson's talked about several times in different places throughout spring brawl at the beginning and after a couple practices, where he's going to expect some guys to leave. Now, for Utah State, it's very likely going to be a bunch of players that you've not heard of. Because it is the guys that'll be, end of the bench, 4th, 5th string guys that they don't feel like they're ever going to see the field at Utah State. Maybe you lose a key contributor, but I think at this point, everyone at the top of the depth chart is probably committed to Utah State. I'd be surprised if he lost anybody really good or really impactful. But hey, anything goes these days. Anything goes. But it'll be interesting to see if Utah State ends up bringing anybody in, look at a Power 5, cast off. Maybe they look at some of those guys. Blake Anderson's gone, feet first into the whole JUCO recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
He's gotten tons of JUCO guys. And he believes that it's a deliberate strategy because he thinks JUCO's been under-recruited and he thinks the transfer portal's been overrated. Just his own analysis of, this year. The quality of players in JUCO versus the transfer portal. But we'll see. Maybe he tries to add people in this next window of the transfer portal to try and fill in some spots. Still a little iffy on the offensive line. Maybe iffy in terms of depth at running back. They've got a JUCO guy, a bunch of high school guys, and Robert Briggs. That's kind of an iffy depth chart, unless he's seeing something where he's just really confident. Still thin at linebacker and defensive line. So maybe he looks to fill in some spots in this next transfer window.
Yeah, it's very possible. 9315 texting in, the thing those snobby guys down south forget is a lot of their great players were developed at USU or stole a great player from us, but all they say about that is remember 1984.
Just remember, the greatest thing that ever happened to BYU football was an Aggie.
That's
Lavelle Edwards.
Lavelle
Edwards is an Aggie.
The legend. All right, another quick timeout here in the Full Court Press. Love to hear from you, 435-339-0321.
This is Ryan at My Mattress. My wife and I were laughing the other day because she read an article about things not to buy online. The first thing was prom dresses. Dresses advertised versus dresses delivered. Needless to say, what people thought they were getting is not what they got. It's much the same with mattresses. Almost always, buying a mattress online ends in buyers being let down. At My Mattress, we try to always exceed expectations. Lower prices than online, and better beds. Only at My Mattress.
Spring has sprung and so have the deals at Murdoch Volkswagen. Get ready for a season of adventure and hop behind the wheel of a brand new VW during our spring sales event. Right now, lease a new 2023 Tiguan S for only $299 per month. And receive complimentary maintenance on all new Volkswagen models. When you walk through our doors, you feel like family. at Murdoch Volkswagen in Logan or online at murdochvw.com.
Call 866-628-3065 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 5/1/23.
Did you know that the ideal time to have your wisdom teeth evaluated is between ages 14 to 16? While some people have room to keep them, most do not, and they can grow in at unnatural angles. This can lead to problems like headaches, jaw pain, gum disease, and infection. This is Dr. Devin Burns at Cache Valley Wisdom Teeth. Is it time to have your wisdom teeth removed? Call our office and mention this ad to receive a free panoramic x-ray and consultation. Our compassionate team at Cache Valley Wisdom Teeth will make your wisdom teeth removal comfortable and easy. Visit CacheValleyWisdomTeeth.com.
Internet carriers want to tell you they can save you money. What they don't give you is a personal face-to-face agent who knows you. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. We're saving people 10, 20, even 30% on their insurance. I'm so confident we can save you some dough. If I can't, I will buy you a donut next door at Schaefer House Bakery. Take my challenge. You've got nothing to lose. Either way, you get the dough. Quality First Insurance. Give us a call, 752-0101, or come in and see us.
Join the show by calling 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Hey, your locally owned Napa Auto Parts stores, they can make sure you get the right kind of battery for your vehicle, or, gosh, not that far away, but you might need a new battery for your lawnmower if you got a riding lawnmower or motorcycle or ATV. Go check them out. They've got a lot of different batteries in stock and wiper blades for your vehicles as well, and they can even help you install it if you need the help. So go check it out. They've got 5 different locations between Preston to Providence. That's Napa Auto Parts. So we're talking about former Aggies here. We talked about AJ Vongphachanh and another former Aggie kind of in the news, getting some highlights, some recognition, really. And that's Neemias Queta, playing in the G League for the Kings organization. And I know it's the G League, but still, he had himself a pretty solid season this last year.
Yeah, had a standout season, and, step one to maybe getting a chance in the NBA is putting up huge stats in the G League. Doesn't always work, because sometimes it's some 6'1" former, mid-major guard that, scores like 26 points a game. It's a guy who has NBA skills, NBA, real NBA potential, and he ends up, we mentioned the other day that he was second in G League MVP voting. And then it was announced, I think, yesterday or something like that, or maybe a couple days ago, that he was, I think, was it first team All G League?
Yeah.
And then was on the All Defense team. So 2 big accolades for him. He's really shown that he is truly one of the best G League players, and honestly really deserves a better shot at the NBA level.
Yeah. I think just the way that Sacramento's roster is currently constituted, it kind of makes it tough for him to break through at that position.
I don't know if it really does, though, because you have Sabonis, obviously, clearly. He's, he's the all-star center. Dude's going to average like 35 minutes a night. But he needs somebody to spell him, like the Kings were complaining earlier this season that they didn't have a good backup center. Well, maybe try the young guy. And they played him like for 12 minutes for one game, and then they didn't do anything the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's true.
So, they didn't really give him a chance other than the one time when they played him 12 minutes and he scored 10 points.
So, Neemias Queta this year participated in the Next Up game, which is the best of the best from the G League.
It's the G League All-Star game.
Right. He got all defensive honors. He was put on the All G League first team. So very impressive. And his team was number 1 in the West, the Stockton Kings.
Yeah, they were one of the best teams, and obviously Neemias had a big part of that. Like I said, his skill set drives winning. He's not just some guy who goes out there and shoots a ton and scores a ton. He does a lot of different things. He can score. He's not really a scorer. His back-to-the-basket game isn't enough to really rely on that, but he can be a pick-and-roll target, dump-off target who can finish at the rim.
He's mobile enough to move around and affect the offense in different ways.
Yeah, he can be a positive kind of off-ball impact, and the same way Rudy Gobert was. Like, he wasn't a post-up guy, but he impacted the offense in a positive way. Rudy Gobert can kind of be like that. The rim-rolling bigs, they have that impact off the ball. And then, as a defender, obviously, that's where his strength is. He has NBA length, 7 foot, 7'5" or 7'4" wingspan, and great instincts as a shot blocker. He doesn't just have the tools, he has the instincts. We saw that for several years at Utah State, where he wasn't just some guy who went up there and throws his hands in the air and hopes he blocks a shot. He knows how to truly impact shots at the rim. He also is a good passer.
Yeah.
He averaged like three assists and change his final year. Like, when he was the focus of the offense, he was distributing the ball out of the post. And what does Domantas Sabonis do? He throws the ball out of the post. You've got mini Sabonis as a two-way player on your roster. I know you're not going to run Queta through run the offense through your two-way player, but you've got somebody who can kind of do what Sabonis does. You don't have to run all the same sets, but you can do some of the things and know that the guy you have is a decent passer. So that's why I'm a little baffled at times that Queta just doesn't get any more of a chance, just because he has actual NBA skills. When you talk about Sam Merrill, he has three-point shooting, but you worry about his athleticism. But I mean, even then, Sam has length and enough athleticism and three-point shooting. Like when you say J.C. Carroll, okay, he was short. I can kind of get that. There's some real worries about that.
Yeah.
And those have plagued a lot of different players and kept them out of the league. But what is your thing against Neemias Queta? What are you pointing at him and saying he can't play in the NBA? I don't really feel like you can point to something and say he's not an NBA player.
He averaged basically 17 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, and 2 blocks per game.
Yeah. I know those aren't wowing stats. Like I said, he has NBA skills.
Yeah.
He can go out there and average. You play him 15 minutes a game, and he can average 5 points and 5 rebounds and, maybe close to a block. He can give you those key minutes. But they're just letting him, rack up points, rebounds, and blocks in the G League. They're wasting his talent.
Yeah, hopefully he gets an opportunity. Now, since he wasn't on the active roster at the end of the season, he will not be available for playoffs. And that's too bad. But a lot of eyes are on that Sacramento franchise right now with how good of a season that they had, kind of finally coming out of obscurity to get to the playoffs and playing relevant, meaningful basketball all year.
The first time since, the very early part of my life.
Yeah, it's in a generation. So, will it last, though? And I think that's a big question going into these playoffs is who do you trust to play well this time of year?
Apparently only buddy trusts the Lakers. Because there are too many people saying, the Lakers are just going to make it. I'm like, okay, have you watched the Lakers? I've watched them 3 or 4 times these last couple weeks. So they play the Jazz a couple times, watched them play the Timberwolves, and holy cow, are they not that impressive?
Well, and I've heard several other people talking about the Phoenix Suns. Oh, having Kevin Durant, that's a big difference. Well, they haven't really played with Kevin Durant.
Well, Kevin Durant
hasn't had enough time to get to know who his teammates are.
Did this whole song and dance with the Nets. The Nets were supposed to be the next big thing. They were the title favorites for 3 years, and then for 3 years they'd either miss the playoffs or barely be an afterthought in the playoffs. I think 1 year they were dangerous and were a Kevin Durant toe away from advancing past the Bucks. So I don't know. It's just Kevin Durant's a generational player, but just having a generational player hasn't necessarily helped a lot of different teams. Hasn't helped the Lakers recently. Hasn't helped the Nets. James Harden's been on a bunch of teams, and he's been a generational player. Doesn't necessarily help. There's a lot of other factors go into it.
Right, more on that, and we'll hear from Danny Sprinkle, the new coach at Utah State University for men's basketball program. Next hour, stick around.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. Whenever we talk about impact coaches in college football, we normally point towards Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney or Kirby Smart. But when you look at the landscape across college football, there may not be any non-head coach with a similar impact as Brian Hartline at Ohio State. He's the receiver coach. He's been that for 5 seasons. Recently, head coach Ryan Day promoted the former NFL wideout to offensive coordinator. Ohio State is an incredible program with 8 national titles, but Hartline has turned Ohio State into the wide receiver U. He's credited with the recruitment and development of players like Chris Olave and Jamison Williams, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. The coordinator's contributions don't end there. The university landed 5-star receiver Mylan Graham recently. Jumping from high school to the Big Ten is no easy feat, but based on the success we've seen so far, Ohio State's secret weapon deserves plenty of credit for the program's immense success. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.